Hey, welcome to another podcast with UCB and Gospel Entrepreneurs. And I'm thrilled that Mathur is with us today. She's a therapist. She's an entrepreneur. She's going to pick up issues of burnout. She's very personable. She is great to listen to. I'm really excited about this conversation, and I'm thrilled that you're going to join us. Let's listen to Anna. Welcome, Anna.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I am absolutely delighted that this podcast exists, and I'm going to be consuming all of it because I follow loads of entrepreneurial podcasts, but this one with the gospel woven through it is just completely different to anything I've found. So I'm grateful.
Wonderful. Anna, tell us a bit about yourself. People probably don't know you, or maybe some people do know you, but just give us a little bit of who you are, where you live, family, faith journey. Not too long, but just concise that down a bit. That'd be great.
Okay, so I was born and brought up in the countryside near Herefordshire, Worcestershire, that kind of part of the country. Went to church as a child. My mum is a really strong Christian. Her faith has actually been really inspirational to me. She's always held on to God and just had the most compassionate, beautiful way of seeing people and loving people and explaining the nuances of people. And as always, right from little age, helped me understand that people are not always as they seem. And if someone's mean to you, it's probably that they're having a hard time. So she's been really instrumental in my way of understanding the world. So I think that probably fed into my interest in therapy and becoming a therapist. And I did that. I did psychology at college and university, and then moved to London because you have to be 25 to start doing a master's for therapy. So you have a little tiny bit of life experience under your belt. Although, of course, at 25, you feel like you've got all the experience you could ever need because you feel so grown up and wise. So in that time, I worked for a church in Battersea in London called St. Mark's. So I worked there doing some of the women's ministry, working with some of the students, and just really utilizing that compassion, that passion for people. And then went and did a master's in psychotherapy, and then went down a route where I was working in GP surgeries and a bit of private practice, getting my training hours in. You need 450 supervised hours of therapy to be able to become an accredited therapist. So that was going on alongside moving to Surrey and starting to have children. So I very much interwove my clinical work with parenting. And yeah, it was pretty standard, to be honest.
Starting to have children sounds like you moved into a whole stack of them.
Absolutely.
So how many children do you have?
I have three. I have three children. They're all fairly close together, but they're all at school now. So that's created a little bit more space for work. But after my second one, I was just in the thick of this kind of postnatal period where I was getting no sleep, Roy. Absolutely. Like 40 minutes some night because
Wow.
Yeah, I know. He just screamed. He was really uncomfortable. He wasn't very well. So he cried for a lot of the time. And I think I was incredibly humbled because I felt utterly broken. And as someone whose part of my identity was helping others, being a therapist, literally creating a job out of helping people, supporting people, pastoring people, to be in this position where I felt in such darkness I couldn't really help myself was incredibly humbling because I had to let other people then support me and be that support network, which was really hard to accept. And in that time, I downloaded Instagram and found lots of people on there who were being a little bit more open about some of the challenges of parenting. And I just found it really wonderful. Seeing other people talk about those challenging times, I found it really affirming. So I decided I was going to be a little bit more honest about parenting and kind of emotional health, but also using my psychological understanding as well. So that's what I did. I started sharing bits on Instagram, weaving my own experience because I didn't really feel any shame about some of those feelings that I had that might have felt more taboo because I understood why and I understood what to do about it. So I just started sharing that on social media, and that was the start of a slightly different way of working.
Yeah, and didn't it go like crazy? You got so many followers and mums. It just it just exploded, didn't it, Anna?
I think it's just compassion, isn't it? I think social media can be such a place of comparison and a place where we look to have our choices and feelings validated by the people, but we don't always get what we need there. And I think it's, as humans, God has hardwired us for connection. But I think when we are just so over connected to so many people on such a shallow level, we feel like it should be ticking the box. But underneath it all, I think people just know that they're just feeling a bit empty and overwhelmed and a bit lonely and a bit anxious. And I wanted my words to be the words that people came upon and felt mothered or nourished, or just, yeah, that maybe it was that those kind words that they hadn't been able to say for themselves, or they hadn't heard from someone else.
Because you have a beautiful tone and voice, and you've got all the experience, and you walk through it yourself. So speaking out of that platform, I'm sure, created a real empathy with your audience, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think really knowing and understanding all my life, regardless of how I might have been treated, or just having this really deep understanding that in and of myself, however much I've grappled with it and battled with it, and how life hasn't always looked that way, I'm loved and I'm enough and I'm worthy. I'm worthy of what God has done for me. And I think it means then being in that space is a little bit more doable, because yes, sometimes you're going to get people disagreeing with you. You might get people misunderstanding it, but I have the absolute privilege of being able to be anchored in that truth, that I know that I'm loved. I know that I'm doing something out of a passion that I feel is within me, that God has given me, and a gift that God has given me. And that is what I can choose to stand on. Otherwise, it's a very hard space to be. You can easily get lost and consumed by it. And I've definitely been in that, definitely been swayed into that area in the past. But I think that's the most important thing, is to hold on to the gift that you know God has given you, to the truth that you know has been spoken over you, and to that anchors you.
So walking through this experience with your second child open up a whole new world to you. And then your entrepreneurial gift, you said, wow, all of a sudden, people are listening to my podcast. They're listening to what I say. Didn't it go to like hundreds of thousands of followers?
Yeah. So the podcast was something that I very much started in the first lockdown, just as with a desire to use my passion and my heart to give people some words that could anchor them, some words that could feel compassionate in that place of just grappling with uncertainty and fear, that they could listen to on their walks each day. And I think I put out maybe, I can't even remember how many episodes it was, around 20. And I recorded them on the kids' bedroom floor, the top of the house, where it was a little bit quieter. And I had my microphone back to front for half the time. But I was doing lots of stuff, and it just wasn't really, I was paying for some childcare over the years to help me work, but I wasn't earning any money from it at all. So it was costing me. So that's where the entrepreneurial bit came in. It was like recognizing that actually I'm creating something here that people want, but in order to make it sustainable, there are things that I need money. So yeah, just thinking creatively about how I can do that, and how I can have lots of different content out there, lots of which is completely free at point of contact, be it workshops. I did in one of the lockdowns, I knew that there were lots of new mums that weren't getting that support, that postnatal support that they would have had out of lockdown. And I decided that I was going to put on 4 weeks of kind of mental health, really compassion focused, hour-long webinars. And I think it was over 10,000 women accessed that. And it was a pay what you want. So a lot of people,
really?
most people didn't pay. And that was absolutely fine. But it's finding a balance of putting stuff out there that I'm earning from.
Yeah.
So the podcast sometimes has sponsors, so that can pay for that just about. I sell courses and resources, often at discounted rates, but that brings some income in. And then I have the books. So it's, having different types of materials out there that are accessible different prices.
And so the podcast that you run, but you've just taken a bit of a back step from that, haven't you? Now you're on a bit of a roll, and it must be all consuming, because was it like 2 a week or something you were delivering?
Yes, I've been doing that for, I'm trying to think how many episodes I've done, hundreds of episodes. I've done 2 a week for years now. And
how many people do connect with that, Anna?
they've had well over 3 million downloads so far. So loads of people, just they're little 10-minute episodes. And then on Friday, it's a 20-minute episode with a guest and I ask them the one thing they'd love to share with parents. And they've been great. It's just, I feel it's seeking God in the different seasons of your work. And at the minute, I feel like I'm going through a bit of a refining period where things are being stripped away a bit. And there's a part of me, and I think this does happen when you're entrepreneurial. I'm a fire starter, Roy. I think you probably get this. I'm a fire starter. I will have an idea. And if I have to almost sit on my hands to not put that into action. It's not always wise to start things. I look back and I've started businesses that I've had to deconstruct because I did them too quickly. And I didn't always know enough of what I was doing or have the right support around me for that to be sustainable. So it's this real learning that sometimes you have to just sit back and have a look and think, my energy is going to so many different things. And I've got 3 young children and just feel like God's stripping some bits back. And I'm just trying to be obedient in that happening and try not to grab onto things too tightly, because I know historically he's always really honored the space that we create. I'm intrigued. It's not comfortable.
You obviously had quite a learning period where your world was in a bit of a bad place, wasn't it? It was quite difficult because you'd gone after fire starters on so many things and it was too much. And you had to then walk through that, didn't you?
Yeah. And I remember my mum saying, Anna, you could do anything, but you can't do everything.
Yeah.
And I think and this is what I think I love connecting with the Gospel Entrepreneurs Network, because I'm so passionate about burnout. I'm so passionate about, when we have really entrepreneurial brains and we're literally sitting on the sofa next to someone we love, they're watching TV. They've got no idea that we're starting a whole new business in our heads, or we're restructuring everything, or we're rebranding, or whatever it might be. We're sitting there and our brains are so creative. And I think what I'm learning the hard way is that we can't do it all. And it's hard. And if we do try and we do spread ourselves too thinly, or we do just we push through the limits of our resources, or we see the little signals in our body that are saying, I'm tired, you need to slow down. And we go, no, because this is amazing. It's going to be so good. But we risk crashing. We risk crashing. And Roy, when I crashed a couple of years ago and I burnt out, I could do nothing.
Yeah.
I'd pushed and pushed and pushed, and I was on fire. I was excited. I was loving what I was doing, but not in a sustainable way, not in a way that I was well supported or accountable. And I think that's the other great thing about Gospel Entrepreneurs is that there is the opportunity to have accountability, to let someone else say, yeah, that is an amazing idea, but look at what else you've got on at the moment. You can do anything, but you can't do it all, and you won't be able to do it all well, and you might be able to do it all, but maybe you won't be well in it all. So yeah.
And amazing journey. And obviously we're passionate about people in Gospel Entrepreneurs, not just about your entrepreneurial gift, as you say. But you've written a couple of books. Your last book, you've written 3 books for Penguin, haven't you? But your last book was a bit of a God thing, wasn't it? Just give us that. It gets published, I think, is it in a month's time or something?
Yeah. So this is actually my 5th book.
Oh, is it? Sorry.
That I've written. Yeah, over 5 years. I've been writing 1 a year. And this one was really interesting because I was in the publicity bars for my last book, which was all about raising a happier mother. So loads of parenting books, but this book was all about focusing on the mum, all about compassion, all about renewing your mind, and reframing how we see and care for ourselves and allow ourselves to be seen and cared for. So I was writing, doing all the press stuff for that, starting to get all the buzz going. And then I had this idea for a book. Literally, I was with my mum. I'd just done a TEDx talk on parenting guilt. And I got this idea for a book. I was standing right next to the bed, one of those moments that you have this photographic memory of. And I wrote down every title. I wrote down the color of the book. It's going to be yellow, had to be yellow, bright yellow, certain color yellow. And every title of each chapter, the 10 chapters, I wrote down. It took about 30 seconds. And then I said to my literary agent, I need to write this book. I've got an idea. And he was like, slow down. Let's get this one out first. Let's put that on the back burner. Great idea. Not for now. And also I was writing motherhood books for Penguin, and this, The Uncomfortable Truth it's called, is not a motherhood book. But so yeah, I tried to put it on the back burner, Roy, but it wouldn't go on the back burner, and it kept swimming into my consciousness. And I started writing it when I was falling asleep in my head. And when you start doing these things in your head, you think it's just so much easier just to get it on paper. So I said to him that I was just going to write the book as a passion project. Even if no publisher wanted it, I needed to write it. For some reason, it had to come out. So I planned to write it over 3 months and get up early and do it around the kids over summer holidays. But I went for a walk. I remember walking around the fruit farms near my house and getting this real sense that I needed to write the book in 2 weeks. So I did. I wrote this book in an absolute whirlwind of hyper focus. It was basically like steam coming off my laptop, and I was doing it whenever I wasn't with the kids. And I wrote this book, and I just had to honor what I really believed was God asking me to get that book done. And he gave me what I needed to get it done. He gave me the space to get it done. And then on that, so I finished it on the Sunday. And then on the Wednesday, a year ago, actually today, there was just one of those pieces of family news that just makes your heart drop, and life is just upside down for a while, and nothing feels like normal, and there's grief and there's pain. And I was having to promote a book at that point, and that was all that I could do, to be honest. I could barely do that. And God really honored that, actually. That book did really, really well. But as it is with writing books, on my book publication evening, my literary agent and my editor stood in a corner, and I think I knew what they were talking about, and they were talking about the next book. And my literary agent was able to say, well, she's already done one. This is it if you want it. And fortunately, they did want it, but it's a real God book. So I'm very intrigued to see what he does with it. And I've been more open about my faith in this book than I have with any of my others, more overtly open.
Yeah, there's been a bit of a change, hasn't there? Because you've shared your faith with me, because obviously this is a gospel entrepreneurs, but you've kept the two worlds a little bit separate in your life, haven't you?
Yeah, I've never really quite known how to navigate it. And that's why I think Gospel Entrepreneurs is such an important network, because when you have worked in a certain area of your work for so long, and also have had a journey with my faith, especially over the last year, where it is so much more important to me than it has ever been before, and a bigger part of my life than it has ever been before. So I think sometimes you need a little bit of guidance and support in how do you start weaving these two worlds a little bit closer together. Where should you, where shouldn't you, where? Yeah. And so, yeah, this book, The Uncomfortable Truth, I talk about meaning in there and finding meaning. And I talk about how I found my meaning and what I find my meaning in. So it's slowly starting to edge in a little bit more. But I love it because every now and again I get a DM, I get a message on Instagram saying, Hannah, are you a Christian? I'm like, yeah. Because I think some people can see what underpins a lot of my work, even if I'm not overt. And I know it's all very well a fellow Christian kind of maybe seeing some of the language that I use or that really resonates with cultural Christian language that we use. But my hope is that over time, more people will think, what is this? Yeah, what's she living for beyond this? What's anchoring her? And I will often tag my amazing church, Emmaus Road, in a story on a Sunday, or just find little ways to just to share that part of me and bring it more to the forefront, because it's not something I'm apologetic about, but it's just a new thing for me to find ways to weave that together. Because therapeutically, my line of training is, it's not bringing yourself into the therapy room. It's not about sharing your story. It's not about, and I've already bucked that trend in how I work publicly. So I've already challenged that a little bit. So we'll see. Yeah.
And just give me a couple of stories of individuals that have either read a book or seen a podcast and they've just come back to you and said that totally changed my outlook, or I was going through this. And just give us a couple of the stories, because I know you've impacted loads of people, but you must have some stories that are special to
Yeah,
you,
there
Anna.
was a woman that came up to me, and I think I was just at an event, and she had tears in her eyes and she said that I'd saved her life. And I think it's just, again, it's just really, really humbling, because this is not a line of work I ever thought existed. I very much just followed. I followed something in me that has led me in down this path. And yes, I have lots of ideas, and yes, but I always want God to be within that. And I think what the powerful thing is, and what this woman shared, was the absolute taboo, the shame around certain feelings, the shame around things like intrusive thoughts. Our thoughts can be incredibly creative, and we can end up thinking that that says a lot about who we are. And there's a lot of darkness when we don't share stuff, because no one can speak compassion. No one can sit with us in the pain, in the confusion, help us untangle it, help bring light into it. So for her, that's what my words were able to do. And yeah, I get every now and again, do get someone come and talk to me, and it makes my work feel more real, because I think when you do stuff so digitally, it's a word I've always struggled to say. I put it in an audio book. I had to keep saying it once, and I had to say it about 20,000 times to get it right. But when you work in an online space, it can feel, yeah, there's a distance. I think sometimes you just feel like you're chucking stuff out there and you're getting pixels. You're getting likes and some comments, but when you speak to people, when you're with people, you can think, yeah, there's something, I'm doing the right thing for now. This is right.
Amazing, Anna. It's been emotional talking to you. Just your empathy, your feeling, your passion. And isn't it so amazing that what your mum put into you at that early age led you on even doing the course you did and the therapy you've done, it was down to your mum's influence. And now you're influencing mums all over the space, saying, look, your
Yeah.
mum has a massive influence on what you do. We're coming into land. People may be listening to this and saying, I've got some ideas. I maybe even got a bit of therapy. Maybe I've done some. What would you say to them? Because you fell into this, didn't you? It wasn't a plan. It was like, I love people and I think I've got something I could bring. What would you say to people listening today?
Yeah, I'd say if you want to shape something, maybe down the route of what I'm doing, I think a few things. One, make sure your boundaries are in the right place ethically. When you start sharing quite emotive work, you get a lot back. And it might be, I've been sat on the sofa, gone on social media at 10 o'clock on a Sunday night and had a message from someone who was suicidal. So I feel like it's really important to know where ethically how to respond. I have an auto reply that goes to every single message that I get in that says, I cannot consult over direct message. Here are some links should you need support. Because when you're so readily available, if you don't put boundaries in, you will get burnt out and it won't be emotionally safe for you. And I think another thing is just start writing bits and pieces and just put them out. Because that's how my account grew, really. It was just people resharing them and saving them and sharing them with their friends. And I think never get fixated on any kind of numbers. Whilst helpful, if that's what you're pushing towards, then that becomes your reason. And also, I think people can really think, oh, only 20 people interacted with this work that had taken me ages and I'd put a lot of heart into. If 20 people in a room listening to you talk about that, you wouldn't think, oh, there's only 20 people here. You'd think, isn't that amazing that my work is touching these people in some way? So I think when we get caught up with numbers, we can end up almost dehumanizing people a little bit. So those are some tips. And make sure you've got another income stream because
What's that, your husband?
My husband. For a long time it was clinical work. It was clinical work, selling courses and writing and putting things together for people. But I'm very grateful that my husband has a much more stable income than I do. Otherwise, I think my work I'd probably be doing a lot more clinical work.
And Anna, it's been great to talk to you. How do people find out a little bit about you? Is there a website or your latest book? How would they connect with you?
So my probably Instagram, if people have it, it's at Anna Mathur. My website is annamathur.com. And then my book is The Uncomfortable Truth. And it's all about just coming to a greater place of acceptance of our mortality and the fact that not everyone is going to love and accept us all the time. And how can we stop shrinking and contorting ourselves to be pleasing to everyone? Because when we're honest, when we're real, that's where the beauty is, right? That's where the relationships are formed. That's where we can change things for each other.
Anna, it's been an absolute privilege and joy to have a conversation with you. And just your radiance in your face and the way you've spoken, but some amazingly profound truth has been really good. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me and for all that you do and your heart behind supporting entrepreneurs. I'm so grateful for you.
This has been a podcast with UCB and Gospel Entrepreneurs. I'm thrilled that Anna was able to join us. Until the next time, it's been emotional, special, and some great truths that Anna's been able to bring to us today. God bless you.